Well, let's take you to Mbali Thethani, who's been watching that conference for us. Mbali, good evening to you. Firstly, Pulemabe talks about wanting to create a safe space for delegates. This conference, the associated controversies have been anything but a safe space.
Well, Kathy, delays have been the order of the day here at the Eastern Cape's ANC elective conference. And I must say that we were expecting this conference to kick off from around 8 o'clock this morning. And I must say that they have not been able to sit and deliberate when it comes to those issues around the adoption of the credentials. I'm just going to step out of shot and just show you that it has indeed been marred by indeed those delays in which you can see here delegates who are outside the main plenary hall. They have been trying to get this conference underway, but there have been a number of challenges when it comes to getting this conference underway and getting these credentials adopted. High at the issues here is indeed the issue around Andile Lungisa, where some of these delegates have raised issues around him being present at this conference when it comes to that criminal record in which he has, where he has been out on parole. We did hear from Andile a bit earlier on when we asked him the issues around some delegates raising that if he is indeed meant to be here when it comes to the issues around the ANC's rules and regulations of that step aside resolution. But at the same time, we know that coming out from inside this main plenary hall, some are saying that those on the slate of Abaloma Digizela are trying indeed to disrupt this session inside of here by singing when some of the officials are trying to adopt those credentials and table them to the members here inside this main plenary hall. But indeed, it is something that we continue to monitor, Kathy. Speaking to officials, speaking to Stelanda Beni Abrahams earlier on, speaking to Pulemabe, asking him the issues around whether can we expect a collapse of this conference, which is indeed in its third day, and it has not been able to indeed get through the order of the day when it comes to the adoption of credentials. And they are saying that they will continue to push to make sure that delegates do not leave here today until those credentials are adopted so that they can get through with the order of the day, and which is indeed them voting in, or rather doing their nominations, which was supposed to be underway a long time ago by now. We also went on this main plenary hall, some reports coming out from the delegates here saying that security is a main concern. They've also seen even more security personnel being deployed inside here, personnel dressed in security in regalia with headgears, with bulletproof vests. Some are even saying that they are even being intimidated by the officials who are indeed handling this conference. You'd know the reason why that security is heightened, Kathy. Just in 2017, when this province tried to elect its ANC leadership, they did have further chaos, and of course it has been dubbed the Festival of Chairs, and this is something that officials have been trying to avoid for the longest of time, but it is a difficult one to get through with just the order of the day being the credentials still not underway. And of course officials are still deliberating and are still in meetings trying to iron out the issues around the credentials.
Well, one wonders how long they'll be willing to continue delaying this conference before perhaps calling it off and trying to see if they can reconvene it. Let's take you to Sipha Kema, who's also watching this conference for us. Sipha, there's a lot been said, particularly about the information. Right now we understand that there's a big contestation between the opposing sides that each want to come out of this conference being the successful ones, or being the victors, for lack of a better phrase. But as it stands, the fact that it's not going ahead, how are conference delegates dealing with that?
Well, of course, some conference delegates, Kathy, you're seeing delegates coming in, moving along the corridor and the passageway here, but some of them are still stuck inside. In fact, my guest almost couldn't make it for this live crossing because he wasn't allowed to actually step out. He had a hard time coming out. Also, Kathy, let's take you back just to a few minutes just before, we had the briefing by Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams. What had transpired there, we heard singing going on inside the conference venue. From the singing, we could hear that, of course, that singing was a way of interrupting the proceedings that were happening inside there. And, of course, this we've been told as well during that briefing by Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, saying that, of course, there's a certain group that is trying to cause disruptions inside that conference room. Now, just want to take you back, Kathy, before we speak to our guest, to 2017. Now, if we look at how everything is going and making the comparisons, we've been saying this, I said this from the morning when I spoke to Andile Lungisa, that, the issues that he was bringing forward are the same issues he brought up at the same time in 2017, saying that there's been a manipulation of processes, ghost delegates being allowed inside. Same thing he is saying again now. And of course, we heard that they were trying to allegedly take him out of that conference room, but he said to me that there's no way that they're going to take him out. He will get in. He is a delegate, and an eligible delegate at that. No one will be able to take him out. Now, what he's saying is almost the same thing that had transpired in 2017, where we saw him going through the same issues that he's going through now, which of course led to the same, somewhat chaos that you're hearing and that we also saw earlier on, where of course now heads of regions had to gather into the meetings trying to find a resolution to this issue so that the conference can go ahead and credentials can be adopted. Now, we remember in 2017 that the issue was that one group was not allowing for credentials to be adopted. Same thing is happening, and allegedly we have it that it is the Matikizela group that does not want credentials to be adopted. But let's first hear from Ngawonge Bulala, who's from the OR region now. Ngawonge, tell us now what is happening inside. You were telling us that there were issues of intimidation inside, searches inside as well, and apparently we hear that some of the delegates belonging to a certain group are being called to come fetch their clothes from the B&B as a way of making it out of the conference venue and not being able to come in again.
Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone. What is going on inside, you understand that we are involved now, engaged actually, in a very close session because we are dealing with credentials, a question of credentials. The question of credentials, by its nature in the ANC, it's a highly contested agenda item. And now delegates inside plenary, if I could put it that way, was engaging the credentials, the item of the credentials, which is their rightful issue, which they should be partaking in. Then it came to a deadlock because we had difference of ideas as to which branches, who should be there in the plenary and who deserved to be there. It came to a deadlock, and the steering committee then took charge of it, saying, let's adjourn for a few moments because there were some, in the plenary, some of the delegates that felt that we are forced, in fact, to take a direction whereby it will only favor one side and disfavor the other side. So what is happening now inside is that it's highly contested environment, highly engaged environment.
Ngawonge, I do believe that, I know that you are one of Babalo Matikizela's supporters, of course. We've spoken before numerous times, and you've made it quite clear that you want Oscar Mabuyane out. Now, it seems as though the complaints are coming from the Matikizela group, mostly, claiming intimidation. What exactly is this intimidation?
It's not per se intimidation. I won't say intimidation because...
Security inside.
There's security inside, that's correct, because the delegates were engaging the credential, and the presiding officer, which is the chairperson of the session, was kind of being impatient with the plenary. And then some of the delegates sank, and everything broke up. And now the steering committee came in to say, let's relook the issue, the questions of credentials. Maybe there is a case that is being brought, of which there is a case that is being brought by some of the delegates, majority of the delegates inside of the plenary. You understand, both sides want to win the conference. And the side that you have just mentioned, I want to believe, has got the upper hand, but it does not have an upper hand in running the conference itself. You understand, the conference is run by the convener and the coordinator, who are both they are contesting for the second term, and they are running the conference. And you might understand that they will try to sneak in few of delegates just to tilt numbers. So we believe that the process, the delegates from Khubusane, there's been a court order on Khubusane question. There's been communication from the SGO office about the manipulation of branches of Krisani, and all those branches, there's a question mark over their heads. So the contestation is there around those issues. The branches that were not supposed to be here, delegates that are not supposed to be here, but are kind of discussed to be part of the credential and be adopted. We differ. We have a contrary view to that. We're saying they shouldn't be here. They should be outside, if I could put it that way.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Ngawanke Bulala, of course, from the OR Tambo region, one of the strongest supporters, of course, of Babalo Matikizela, telling us, of course, what the issues are inside. He's one of the people that we managed, of course, to get. We've been trying to find out what exactly is happening there inside. Now, just to give you another one there, Kathy, is that earlier on, shortly after the singing started and the disruptions of the conference started, of course, we saw one of the candidates, which is Babalo Matikizela, leaving, of course, with his chief campaigner or head of campaigns, Uluyolo Ngakula, heading out. But of course, we did not see him return. So we are still unsure whether he's back inside. We have not seen him come back, but we can confirm that I did see him actually leave the conference venue earlier on, shortly after the disruption started inside. Now the singing is still continuing inside. We can still hear the singing going on inside, the whistling going on inside. I'm just going to try to move a bit closer, of course, just to see if we are able to see that. See, the passageway still has some people outside. Some of the delegates are still standing outside. Some are making their way inside. Some had said, of course, that they're finding it rather difficult to actually make their ways outside. So that's what's currently happening now. And I must tell you, Kathy, I'm definitely seeing flashbacks and a reminder or a repeat of 2017, even though we've been made or being assured that they have it under control. But currently what we're seeing, maybe there is a plan in progress that is going to address what is happening inside. But one can't help but wonder whether or not we are going to see a repeat.
All right, Sipha, Kema, let's leave it there for this evening. Mbali, Thethani will also leave it with you there for tonight.